think of a bureaucratic organization that seems like it's out that it's run by a cabal of your enemies. Well, the Department of Defense kind of seems to have definitely gone that way. It's doing things that doesn't make a whole lot of sense anymore. But then again, I haven't been really hep to what they've been doing for quite a while.
I've been blowing money on contractors usually. I mean, that seems to be.
Oh yeah, I mean that's really been its function for quite some time. I mean, it was the DoD was essentially in order to fulfill the obligations that Eisenhower saw he thought they needed in order to counter the Soviets. He deliberately built the system based on what he'd seen his entire life as a military man. Yeah, you bring in the contractors, and the contractors run all the key stuff that you can't have the military doing, and et cetera, and the system is basically what he built. It's just much larger and so massive beyond the scope that no human being can actually look and see what it's all doing at any particular time, to the point where, there's $1 trillion missing. Oh well. I mean, that sounds kind of shocking, but we've done it before.
Yes, and no one's surprised. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could probably go.
Okay, what about, good example. Okay, some of the things that Conquest got into was talking about how various religious organizations essentially kind of went that way. So,
Church of England.
Yeah. I mean, the Church of England would be unrecognizable to a lot of the people who were actually, deeply involved in believers 20 years ago. They'd say, well, this isn't what we're about at all. In fact, it's so bad that apparently there are splinter groups breaking free and essentially aligning themselves to the Roman Catholic Church, which is, mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
That they've gone so far on that.
Yeah, this was the one that was the hardest thing, because I can see it in large bureaucracies where people just kind of do their own thing and they care about what they care about and not necessarily the mission of the company. Although I guess I can. I don't know how many times you've heard this. Like, this job would be great if it was not for all the goddamn customers.
Yeah. Oh, I used to say that back in Colorado all the time with my business.
It's
like, hey, lady, you suck, but your dog's fantastic.
Or when I started out in tech doing help desk, I was just like, I despise some of these people. I really do. But I, just because customers are difficult to deal with doesn't mean I was trying to take down my call center either. Is it enemy stuff to slack off to do the absolute bare minimum? I don't know. So this was the one I had the hardest time. I was like, what are great examples of it acting like the cabal of its enemies, even if they don't mean to be the enemies?
Yeah. I mean, obviously any bureaucratic organization runs into the problem. And the fiefdom thing you were talking about, where, and this is something people who've never been in government have a hard time grasping, where you can have a person who seemingly is not that consequential of a person, but they have a combination of, they've been there a long time, they're in the right place to do things, and they're brash enough to where people just say, okay, well, they're not wrecking anything and they're kind of making our area go, so we'll just let them be a cowboy. And previous video I made a quick example of this was we had this period when I was working over in Korea with the Air Force where they originally you had to cycle out every 12 months. It wouldn't let you stay there any longer. And they ran into a big budget crunch and they said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to do this experimental program. Anybody who wants to extend there can extend there as long as they want, as long as their commander says they haven't done anything bad. And so all of a sudden you had people staying there 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so you had people who were essentially the equivalent of mid-level management sitting in the same place while their superiors were cycling, because that's a kiss of death for an officer to stay there more than a year. So higher level management was cycling out every year, and these middle level managers were basically sitting there for 3, 4, 5 years, and they accumulated incredible amounts of power, far, far, far beyond what they should have been able to do for their rank and position. But you literally were to the point where it's like, okay, if you want to get something done at this place, you need to go talk to Sergeant Jones. And you knew that. And you went there, you kissed his butt, and if he thought you were a good guy, then all of a sudden the bureaucracy moved and did the things you needed to be done. And if you went in there and said, I outrank you, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, it's like, here, let me move this piece of paper for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd be lucky if you got it done before you had to leave in 12 months. And so you see that same thing all over the government, because you have all kinds of agencies where you get people who sit in place and gain power far beyond the scope of what you think they should be able to pull off. Fauci is probably a good example of that. And so you have various departments there you go. The NIH is probably a really good example of Conquest's third rule. Does it actually seem to be almost like it's being run by a cabal of enemies trying to do exactly the opposite of what it's designed to do? It does, kind of. I mean, if anything about its background of COVID research and etc. Turns out to be fully accurate, that would definitely be an example of it.
I mean, all of those organizations, NIH, CDC, WHO, if your mission is this, you're having a whole lot of people doing things that seem to be completely unaligned with that mission. If we're actually concerned about public health, why are you doing these things? Why are you making these proclamations? And maybe a lot of this is not nefarious. It's just mediocrity and incompetence. You don't have to have a lot of people trying to be evil.
Yeah, I mean, if COVID was essentially, if it was a created entity, I doubt very much anybody was sitting there going and basically planning on launching it out. It was exactly what you're saying, bureaucratic incompetence, where everyone's like, hey, we need to build this because it's going to make everything look really cool, because we're going to show we did something, and we get something for the money, and we've done something like this in the past. If we do it again, we justify our funds coming in, and we can't do this in the United States anymore because of the laws. Well, we'll outsource it to other countries. And it's like, the only country in the world that'll do it is China. Well, nothing wrong with that, because they're kind of our buds in the big global order now. So we'll just outsource it to them, because obviously they're going to understand the kind of standards you need to run this in. They're not going to like set up a canvas tent in the middle of a marketplace and do high level gene research on a virus. Whoops. So I could very much see that. Yeah. So I wasn't insinuating like a nefarious idea. It's just they go in these levels of stupidity where it's like, we keep doing that, so therefore we'll keep doing it like that. Now I know one thing along those lines is there's a background program that I just kind of became aware of. Essentially, apparently the Department of Defense has a mandate to come up with something akin to a vaccine to every disease that's ever been used in warfare and any disease that could potentially be used in warfare by 2050. And it would not surprise me at all. So you see, yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if whoever came up with this said, "Oh, well, yeah, when we get our dark money, we'll funnel it through the NIH and other stuff like that, and the NIH will do some of the work we need done." And apparently, this is being done in all these various labs scattered all over the globe that we're outsourcing to because, I guess to a certain extent, there's some level of intelligence there where you go, "Oh, let's work on the dangerous virus or the dangerous microbe. Let's do it in Ukraine. Let's do it in China. Let's do it here." So give them credit for that. That was probably smart, but but yeah.
How could this go wrong?
Yeah. So
the amount of pie in the sky things that our military tries to do is one of the things that came up in Malice's book was the whole Star Wars thing during the Reagan era, and and everybody like engineers, scientists all over, like going, "No, this is a stupid idea. This is not something that's possible." And but certain people wanted it, so it went way too far and spent a lot of money. And
yeah.
At least that one, though, seems to be somewhat, but it's an incredible waste of money. Not nearly as dangerous as
yeah.
manipulating genes of viruses.
Yeah. Now it had a totally unintended side effect, is it that it scared the Soviet Union so bad that one, they tried briefly keeping up with us, which didn't work because they believed our hype. They thought we were actually getting a lot closer to it than we were. And it is probably one of the things that helped speed up the demise of the Soviet Union. Again, that was purely by accident, not design.
Yeah. Although the other argument is there was so much goodwill by the time Reagan was in office with the Soviets. This was the sticking point. And Reagan was like, Reagan's actual thing is, well, no, we're going to develop it and then we're going to share it as another mutually assured destruction kind of thing. Because we'll both have defenses for nuclear weapons, so then we can just start disarming because we don't need them. And this is actually what he was telling to Gorbachev at the time. And Gorbachev was like, no.
Mm-hmm.
If you would just take this off the table, we could have serious talks right now. And people around Reagan were at the time saying, just let it go, man. We can't build this. We can't. Mm-hmm. It was very funny, which is odd. In that book, there's not a lot of funny things.